Was Kurt Vonnegut a poet? This question was a live one in 1971 when Vonnegut was invited to perform in the International Poetry Forum reading series based in Pittsburgh. In the months leading up to the performance, the International Poetry Forum's founder, Samuel Hazo, was interviewed by the now defunct Pittsburgh Press, and Hazo said, "Vonnegut is a poet who writes fiction." I love this take because there's two ways we can interpret the question. In the most straightforward sense, did Vonnegut write things that sort of resemble what we think of as poems? The answer is kind of rarely. We encounter a good bit of poems in his novels, but they're almost always in the voice of a farcical character, right? Vonnegut sometimes actually intentionally writing sort of bad or extremely ironic poems. But Hazo was thinking of poet in the more liberal sense, as someone who pushes language up against its limits to answer the kinds of questions that are most essential to us as humans. When I ask my students about this, some have a very strict sense of what it means to be a poet. Others have a more liberal sense of a poet being something that could describe a fiction writer, a playwright. But regardless of their position, I found that every student that takes a very strict view has at least one fiction writer they see as being sort of this transcendent figure, a kind of poet. So these are the questions I want to open up to the world. First of all, would you consider Vonnegut a poet? And second, is there a fiction writer you're most inclined to identify as a poet who writes fiction? Vonnegut's performance was initially scheduled for the 600-person Carnegie Lecture Hall in Pittsburgh, but it sold out in a single afternoon, so it was moved to the recently opened Heinz Hall, and strangely enough, ended up being one of the first events ever held there.